What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video for the World Cup warm-ups. This one is for France versus Fiji, a game I'm really looking forward to. It feels like we really don't get to see enough Fiji games televised. So going up against France, it's one of the games that is being televised here in the UK this week, so I'm really looking forward to see where Fiji are at, especially with them now overtaking Wales in the world rankings. They're playing them in that Pool C. There's a lot of talk around whether Fiji can actually get into the quarterfinals this year, so I'm really going to be keeping a close eye on them. As we do in these preview videos, we're going to check out the teams that have been announced for both sides, having to think about what we expect from this game, given some stats, and finally a score prediction. If you enjoy this style of video, make sure to drop it a like, and if you want to see more rugby content on YouTube, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Help support the smaller channels on YouTube to get the videos out to as many people as possible before we get around to the World Cup. So starting out then with France. Now, France last week played Scotland in a really exciting game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was quite contradictory to what we saw in the Wales-England one, which was just endless penalties and handling issues and stuff. The France-Scotland game really opened up. Both teams just going at it, backs, running the ball all around. Both teams suffering injuries, and one of the key talking points from that one was Ntamack taking his injury, so we won't be seeing Ntamack at this World Cup with that ACL injury. And there's a lot of talking points now around who's going to fill in that fly half shirt for France going ahead. He's such a versatile player as a fly half for France. He will be missed sorely, especially with working with a partnership like Antoine Dupont. They played together so much, they know exactly what to expect from one another, so we'll have to see how France get on. Now, France going into this week have made a number of changes, not a complete overhaul like we've seen from other teams in over this World Cup warm-ups, but probably good 90% of the team has been shifted up in this in the starting 50, which you'd probably expect. They put on the first squad really to go up against Scotland, going up against Fiji, a little bit rated lower in the ratings in the world rankings, but Fiji are up and coming. They're doing extremely well in their other games, so you might not want to undercut them. With so many changes, you might think, oh, is this like a B team, France? I mean, it's still an impressive squad sheet. The depth in France at the minute is really looking good. So in terms of the front row, we have Wardy, Malvaka and Antonio. Now, Antonio normally fits in that starting front row. We got to see Aldegheri last week, right? So Antonio getting a start this week, just trying to probably fight out for that tight head position. Who's going to be starting when you get into the actual World Cup? Malvaka, though, an incredibly fast hooker as well. The scrummaging from France will be a big contention point. Fiji love their physical game as well. They're not necessarily just trying to get in terms of the set piece, but Fiji just attack just with mega units. They just run through you. The offloading game is tough. Defenses will be tested in this game, so trying to win the set piece, maybe trying to earn you some penalties to move you up the field will be a really big ease on some of the forwards, rather than having to just defend constantly in tackles or smash through some really big tackles from the Fijian players themselves. In the lock department then, Paul Willemse coming back into the side in that number 5 shirt, and Florian, I keep butchering this guy's name wrong, I need to hear it more often, Verhaeghe is going to be coming on. Hopefully, I'm sort of getting that pronunciation right. I'll get better as we get through the World Cup. We get to see some of these names a little bit more. But Paul Willemse, an experienced head in that line out. They'll want, again, the set piece for France will be an area they'll definitely want to try and take control of. They're a much more experienced side. They're currently ranked world number 3. They would want to be getting in that line out. Paul Willemse is one of the lads who will absolutely try and mess up that line out for Fiji. In the back row then, Francois Cross goes in alongside of Dylan Cretin and Gregory Aldrit, the only man to survive from the back row from last week. He looked a little bit annoyed coming off the field last week. He came off kind of early into that second half. He didn't look like he'd had any injury or any issues. He looked a little bit bemused himself as to why he was coming off, but coaches are wanting to test a couple of things out. He's remained in for this game, get some more game time this week. I have no doubt Gregory Aldrit's going to be playing in the big games against New Zealand in that World Cup as long as he can avoid injury. And even though they're going to be missing players this week like Charles Olivon, Dylan Cretin is still an immense flanker. Francois Cross as well. Both good in terms of the breakdown. They'll both go for some mega hits. It was nice to see, though, Charles Olivon actually running with the ball last week. I actually even said in the preview video, it feels like a long time since we've seen Charles Olivon run over from a try from distance. And last week he actually managed to do it in the game after I said that in the preview. So I'm glad he's improving. But again, another one that's probably nailed in for some of those big games in the World Cup. So a nice chance for some of these other lads to get a nice bit of game time in against a ferocious team like Fiji. In the halfback partnership, Maxime Loukou goes in alongside of Hastoy, who was named in the squad a couple of weeks back. I can't think what game that was in, but I don't think he actually got to play. I don't think he had any game time. I think he sat on the bench for the most of it. So I've only seen a couple of games from Hastoy in terms of the French international jersey before, so I'll be keeping a bit of a closer eye out for him. Obviously, probably, this wouldn't be your starting halfback partnership. You'd always want to have Dupont and Roman Ntamack to me. I would maybe argue that Jalibert is going to get more of a look in for that fly half shot with Ntamack out, but, you've got to get other people in. You can't just have your one fly half unless you're Eddie Jones naming an Australia team. So, Hastoy getting in there. We'll look forward to see how he gets on. In the centre partnership, Jonathan Darnty goes in alongside of Arthur Vincent. This is, I think this is your power versus your technical side, right? I think Arthur Vincent is such a fast player, can cut some really nice lines. Jonathan Darty's just going to run through you. He doesn't care you're in the way, and he's a tough man to bring down. Interesting what they've done here, because I think Vincent can also play out on the wing. Mofana can also play at centre, so they've got a bit of interchangeability there if they need to. Mofana's gone out onto the left wing for this one, whereas they normally have tend to put him in that inside centre alongside someone like Gael Ficou if they've got two wingers available for them. Biel Bieri will be going back onto that right wing, and Melvin Jaminet in that fullback position. I'm looking forward to see a little bit more from this young lad on the right wing. Only had a couple of caps, but looks like he's going to have a really, really big career with France. Defensively, I've seen a couple of the tackles that he was making. He was definitely sort of getting beaten in a couple of tackles, still making them, but maybe losing me to someone like Fiji. Fiji have big wingers, right? You've got to be on it very, very hard in terms of defensively. He's already proven to me that this lad's going to be, a nightmare to defend against when he has the ball in his own hands. I'll be keeping a bit of an eye out for his defensive technique in this one to see how he gets on against some pretty monstrous Fijian wingers. Overall, it's a nice French team. Like I said, I don't think it's the starting French team UBC going up against New Zealand. Still experimenting, still testing some new things out, but, not a bad team at all. Still some really, really big names to go in there against Fiji. In terms of the replacements then, we have Pierre Bourgarit going in alongside of Jean-Baptiste Gros and Thomas Leclayet. I'm going to hopefully get that pronunciation right. That one caught me completely off guard. I didn't actually read the team sheet before I started making the video. A new name for me making his debut. I've had to go and quickly look him up because I genuinely didn't know anything about him. Plays over at Racing 92 apparently, and has also played, got 5 caps with the under-20s for France. So, has a bit of international experience, but not, the top-tier international that I'll be finding himself. So look forward to see how he gets on in that second half. Rest of the replacement forward, Charleroi goes in alongside of Thibaut Flamand and Sekou Makalu on that bench as well, whether he's going to come on 8, flanker or wing. They've gone for the 6-2. I still consider this to be a 6-2 because, Makalu can play the wing, but they tend to use him more as a forward, and the wing is just in case everything tends to go wrong. You've got your option to chuck him out there. But I think the 6-2 is a nice move here. Fiji are a tough old side. They're physical. They don't give up either. Like you see with some of the other tier 2 sides, you see them drop off maybe after 60 minutes, 70 minutes. Even if you see that fatigue kick in for Fiji, any of them, pretty much at any point, can just suddenly explode and run away with a try. You've got to be on it for the full 80 minutes. But I think the 6-2 is probably a really good move. I think the amount of physicality Fiji bring to a game, having your 6-2, take some of your forwards off, try and avoid injuries, don't let them get knackered and just clattered over and over and over again by Fiji. One of the best ways to play Fiji is don't give them the ball. So if you can have 6 forwards as well in terms of the breakdown, you can recover your own ball quicker from the back of rucks, but you can also maybe get some more jackal penalties. I think it's the right way to play against Fiji. In the replacement backs then we have Baptiste Saran goes in alongside of Matteo Jalibert, who I imagine will be coming on. And maybe they'll do a half and half because they need to get game time in now with Ntamack not playing. So maybe we'll see Hastoy for the first half and Jalibert second half. If someone is more, knowledgeable on the French squad than me, which I'm sure there's a lot of you guys watching, I'm not too sure about Jalibert or Hastoy moving to centre because they did that a little bit with Ntamack playing at centre and Jalibert playing at 10, and having like a double playmaker style. I'm not sure if either of them's completely versed in trying to fit that. Maybe they would go for that as well if somebody is, but that's my own personal knowledge gap on this one. But as a French team goes, that isn't your typical starting French team. Still a solid team. I think from a coaching standpoint, I'm liking what they've gone for here. I can sort of see how they're going to be playing this game. They're avoiding the key injuries to some of their bigger players against a physical team like Fiji just before you get to that World Cup. They've got enough experience in there mixed in with some of the new boys to give them a shot, but also more calmer heads like Gregory Aldrit as captain just to sort of sort them out. Make sure you can win that game, and the 6-2 split I think is a really good move going up against a side like Fiji. Talking of who then, we'll move on to talk about Fiji. Now Fiji's one of the sides that I really enjoy actually watching play when I can catch a game. I went and saw Wales versus Fiji in the Principality last year. They're a side I really enjoy watching. It is a side, however, that I don't have an enormous amount of knowledge on. I'm sure many of you guys are aware this isn't my job. I'm not some sort of sports journalist. This is a part-time hobby as a fan of rugby. So unfortunately, my knowledge on Fiji is not the best. I'm going to be looking to improve this over the course of the World Cup and getting to know a little bit more about Fiji. They have been doing well, though. Of course, they beat Japan 2 weeks ago, right? And it was a pretty big score. I got a note down here. It was 35-12 to Fiji. And Japan, a lot of people are talking about, well, Japan will cause an upset in that Pool D. They'll get themselves into the quarterfinals. They might beat England. They might beat Argentina. I'm really not seeing it at the minute. Japan doesn't seem quite the same force we've seen in the past. But Fiji, that's a great score to put over on Japan. They also beat Samoa before that, 33 points to 19, and beat Tonga before that, 36 points to 20. So they are beginning to beat some of these teams. And just for some context about how it's improving, going back to last year, they lost to Samoa 23 points to 20. They lost to the Australia A team 32 points to 18, but they did beat Tonga 36 points to 0, which is a monstrous score. But so they're showing clear signs of improvement, beating teams like Samoa, who they couldn't do against last year. The one thing for Fiji, for me, is they just don't have enough games in a year, let alone have games televised for your average fan to be able to pick up and learn a little bit about them. But they do have some pretty monstrous players in there. Now, I won't be able to go super in depth about a lot of the Fijian forwards, just my own personal knowledge. But Lavani Bhatia is a bit of a monster. He also got to play in the Barbarians game when it was the Barbarians versus the World 15, and was certainly showing off there alongside of Mata. So they have got some big forwards in there. Lomani's probably your first choice scrum half for Fiji. He's an experienced head now with that Fijian team, and he's a little bit of a nuisance. He can absolutely run away with the ball himself. The backs, though, is where Fiji really explode, right? They've got so many different players that are just massive monster men that can all seemingly interchange into different positions. So Semi Ranjaraja's playing the inside centre this week, playing as the captain as well. He also has been used at outside centre. You can also chuck him on the wing. Joshua Tuisova, another absolute monster unit that's going to be out on that right wing, can absolutely get a try from pretty much anywhere. He'll run through tacklers. Now, one name that is missing out on this list for me is Naya Kalevu. Naya Kalevu is not in the side, normally plays in that outside centre position. Normally he's a captain, and I think he even got named as the captain for the World Cup squad. So not in this game. Don't believe he's picked up any injuries and stuff. I've had a quick look online. Couldn't see anything to say he's ruled out of the game. Maybe they're just testing out some other players. Maybe they're testing out who else they can maybe fill in as a captain if Naya Kalevu isn't fit for one of the games or doesn't play in one of the games, to give him Ranjaraja a chance. But they do have a pretty monster team in Fiji, and like I said, it'll be one of the teams over the course of the World Cup I'll be paying very close attention to, and hopefully delivering some slightly better preview videos when I get to learn a little bit more about the players and what they can bring to the side. But if you consider yourself a bit of a Fiji aficionado, everything there is about Fiji rugby, drop it down in the comments. Who should we be keeping an eye out for in this game? What special things should we be looking out for in the way Fiji play? Help other people learn, including myself. I have a YouTube channel. I never claim to know everything about rugby. It's really fun to have a bit of a space where other people can help other people learn about some of the international rugby. So I'm really looking forward to see what you guys have to say about this one. So what do we think in terms of a score prediction then? Well, the France team is not, the typical France team you'd expect for a big game like they're going to be playing in the World Cup, but they've still got some big players. France have the home advantage, but Fiji have been playing well. When you look at these scores, they're averaging 33 points a game scored. So although they can potentially concede a lot, Sean Edwards' defence is going to be really tested for this France team. So if Fiji can put some big scores on the board, sometimes it may not matter just how many points you're conceding as long as you're scoring more. I think Fiji can bring a really tough game for France in this one. It's going to be what I'm actually probably most excited for over this weekend, even though there's some really other big games going on alongside it. For me, I'm still leaning towards France, just with that home advantage where they are in the world rankings going into their own World Cup. They'll want to have a big performance in this one. I thought they performed really well in the game against Scotland last week, even with how many changes have been made between the 2 weeks. I'm going to say a France win, and I'm going to say by 12. That's going to be my prediction, guys. Make sure you drop down your score predictions down in the comments sections. Let me know what you guys think of the teams. Make sure you're getting your picks up on the Super Brew app. And of course, we'll be having a look through them all on Monday just to see how completely wrong I was about all the different predictions on the channel. We've also done one of these videos for the Wales versus Springboks game is already out. And whenever the Ireland-England teams get announced, we'll be doing a video for that one as well. Make sure you are subscribed to keep up to date with all the latest videos as they come out. And I will see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.